So, because I saw so much hypocrisy when I was a child, I never wanted to connect to a cult or a sect that had to put down everything else to support its position. So I just don't want to be that way, because I saw what happened, with my parents, and some really cool things happened out of this kind of we're the best and all the rest are inferior. I don't like them. But also, you've got so many options. It still has you feel something in India that you don't feel in other countries. There is a respect for anyone religious by most people. And and it's such an ancient culture, but modern life tends to religion becomes political and wealthy and you get caught up in power and wealth. That's dangerous, because then the whole spiritual quality tends to be lost in promoting things and worldly things. But that's a problem of ignorance, avijja. So it's human ignorance, and I'm not, because like we, the thinking mind always wants the best, and so it's a dualistic structure of this is better than that, this is the best, this is inferior, and so our system of logic and reasoning is based on this dualism, which is about comparing one thing with another, different qualities, which is bigger and smaller and so forth. And when we attach to that function as a way we experience life, then we can't help but feel inferior or superior in various ways. And if we're told, our religion is superior to the rest, and your parents affirm that when you're a child, you don't start doubting your parents till you're, 13, 14 years old. You get your initial kind of conditioning in those early years, and about your nationality, race, gender, all the rest comes from that conditioning and based on ignorance, really. So, it's some of the conditioning is very good, some of it isn't. But then why do people are all these endless wars going on over political views or religious views? And because they're coming from an identity that somehow Sunni Islam is better than is the real Islam, and what's the other one? Shia Buddhism is inferior or lesser form, and then the logic is that you get rid of the fight against the lesser. It's you demonize it, and so. This is because we're attached to these conditions all the time, and we don't know it. We're just operating from positions that we've acquired. Because when you acquire all that, when you're an innocent child, you don't choose it. It becomes the way you're conditioned to think and react and feel. So this is where like with our practice here, it really takes you outside that conditioning. like they emphasize the Jit Wang, empty mind, so that then you can get perspective on the conditions that you have, that you acquired even before you were just a little babe soaking up whatever is given to you, Because like consciousness is empty. It doesn't have any form. It doesn't belong to any religion. It's a natural phenomenon. It's not even a phenomenon. It's here and now, and it's what we're experiencing in the present moment. And then the conditioning takes place, and then we experience life through these conditions. And that's why, like in the second noble truth, is about letting go, which isn't, it's not destructive, it's just, if you just let go of things, then you can recognize the pure consciousness. And then that's unity, because we're all experiencing the same consciousness at this moment. I mean, it's not what the consciousness you're experiencing is exactly the same as mine, but the conditions in it are different. And so if you can get people to recognize that, then the conditions aren't no longer the things that we're operating from. We see, we realize Dhamma, reality, ultimate reality, and we're no longer just bound into reactive behavior on a condition level. And that's really, I think that's very wonderful, because we have to live in this whirlpool of samsara all the time, in human form, and when I first started meditating, it seemed impossible because of the effect of the sensory world, surrounding me, and also my own conditioning, my own personality and emotional habits and reactions to things just seem, there's no way to get out of them or get beyond them. But there is.
Can you say that consciousness was already there before we were born, and is there after we...
Yeah,
It's not contradicting to the Buddhist teaching.
No, not at all. Because like in Buddhist teaching, people get confused because of the five khandhas, because consciousness is, in that sense, conditioned. But vijnana, the word vijnana is used in different contexts, and so they have, some of it's used as consciousness is also one of the immeasurables for jhana, so you have space, consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception and non-perception. And so, but consciousness, as a condition, it's what the five khandhas is about: sense consciousness through senses, through the seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, thinking, and all that. Sense consciousness. But sense consciousness is impermanent because it's shifting all the time, from you see something and you hear something, smell something, and so forth. But the consciousness, pure consciousness, in the Digha Nikaya, they have Vinyanang, Haridasanang, Anantang, Sapadopamang, which is a consciousness, eternal, deathless, boundless, bright, splendid, and that kind of thing. And this is the nature of consciousness. And consciousness as you can't form an image of consciousness, but you can recognize it. Like space in this room, you don't need to form an image of space because it's right here and now. You're just noticing it, really. If you want to form have some form to represent space, what would you do? Because it's around us all the time. Inside us, outside us. And then consciousness is the same. It has no boundary. It's not, not about birth and death anymore. But in the five khandhas, it's used as a sensory consciousness, because that's what we cling to, sensory consciousness. Experiencing life through senses. Our reality is through sensory impressions and through conditioning. So then the mindfulness, sati sampajanya, is where we can actually recognize pure consciousness. Because like conditioned phenomena can't recognize other conditions. If your right hand can't recognize your left hand except through consciousness, and consciousness is, and in the Western sense, we see it as a mental thing, it's like a brain function. But in Buddhism, it's much more. It's one of the immeasurables, and then it's here and now. You're conscious here and now. And you can't define it, but you can recognize. And if you let go of your own thinking process and emotional habits, when you let go of things, then you suddenly recognize consciousness. You're not, like when the Buddha was enlightened, you didn't go unconscious. So, that's where he, in the first sermon, he's saying that between the annihilation and the eternalism of, because the thinking process conceives eternal, or annihilation, and the way Theravada formulations are that if you just do it logically, intellectually, it takes you to annihilation. Because it's where a theistic religion takes you to eternalism. And then in the first sermon, he makes it very clear it's not either one or the other. Well, what could that be? And the thinking process, when you can only have one thought moment at a time. You can't think two words at the same moment. So you recognize that when you're attached to thinking and analyzing and criticizing and using that function of your mind, you're always you're caught in this sequence, this movement of one thing to the next, where intuitive awareness, pure consciousness, and intuitive awareness, anatta, nibbana, all these words convey this. It's a real thing. It's not a theoretical consciousness. In this way, it's not theoretical. It's recognizable.
Can you call that pure consciousness? Can you call it your real self?
Well, in Advaita Vedanta, they call it the real self, but in Buddhism, they don't use those terms. But what it means is, like, the Buddha never tried to, like, the word self, in English is usually about I'm this person, this body. And if you notice how the Buddha taught, it's not talking about some ultimate reality. It's not, when you start, you don't talk about ultimate reality and start from there. You start from here and now, suffering, dukkha, the First Noble Truth. So, and that's something easy to recognize. It's not high. Like God is high, very high, and words like Nibbana. What is Nibbana? You know, it's beyond everything your thinking mind packs up. You can't imagine Nibbana, and then you've got to deal with because we're most of us start from feeling discontented, unhappy, resentful. We've got all kinds of fears and greed and anger that haunt the consciousness all the time. And so the thing that the Buddha did was establish the first sermon on something ordinary, banal even. It doesn't have to be like being crucified on a cross, which is really suffering, but I mean, just feeling hungry. So it's, and then, because I've asked this a lot in England, where people, you have these interfaith, they have a strong interfaith movement in London, and I used to attend these meetings, and of course they'd always, all the other religions were theistic ones, and so they didn't quite know how to relate to Buddhism. They said it's not really religion, it's a kind of humanistic philosophy and whatnot. Well, then then I realized that it's approaching the same thing from a different level. Like, from the here and now, suffering is easy to see. So, and everybody suffers, whether you're wealthy or poor, male or female, it's the same. Whether it's ancient India or modern Thailand or London or whatever, it's some people suffer and still experience suffering. And then you change from where we always to seek happiness, because when you're suffering, we want to be happy, we want to feel secure, we want to be loved, we want to have money and security and respect and all these other things. So we're even you find even people that have all these things are still suffering if they don't know Dhamma. So taking suffering as a noble truth, the interfaith with the groups with asking, that's not, you don't have a God, you don't believe in God, and then Buddhists, a lot of Buddhists, especially Asian Buddhists, we don't believe in God at all, no, we don't have any God. And so they make it sound, like a denial form, but God is only a word. What does it mean? And like born again Christians seem to think that, do you believe in God? And what do you mean by that? They think God, we all should have the same belief as they do. What do they mean by that? And when you challenge them, they don't know how to describe it. God. I can't just repeat the word. You can believe or disbelieve in God. We can, some people believe and some people don't believe. And some people aren't sure, don't really know, they're kind of, doubting types. But what you can know is there a God, I don't know, or I believe, or I don't believe, or I'm not sure. Because these are mental states you're experiencing. We might have proclaimed there's a God, or there isn't. I mean, I'm a product of this society, and like American society, and so I have a certain conditioned view that there is. But then when I became a teenager, I disbelieved it. So I mean, this is very uncertain, believing or denying, disbelieving. But instead of that, the Buddha wasn't saying there isn't any God, or wasn't making proclamations of that nature, but he said there is suffering. Now, that's something we can all relate to. And then you can, and then the attitude is to understand suffering, rather than just react to it, like trying to get rid of it or run away, or just indulge in it and be miserable. You understand means you have to open to it, rather than try to get rid of it. And that's like that sequence of the three aspects of each noble truth is the bodhisattva is the statement that there is suffering, it should be understood, is the bodhisattva, and then the bodhi side is you reflect, and then you've accepted suffering in a way that you're not just reacting to it, trying to get rid of it or indulge in it. And that's quite an important shift in human consciousness, because the world is about seeking happiness and security, and in a world of conditioned phenomena, we don't have that much control over it. So we're trying to, in Holland, they're always trying to make everything secure, all the dikes and what. Because nature there can be quite challenging, and now they're having these terrible storms and strange weather, and in North America we're having this freezing temperatures in New York and Chicago, and so this frightens us because we can't control it. We try to, but this realm is a realm of change, inexorable changingness, and this is what the Buddha was pointing at. This conditioned phenomenon is always changing. That's its nature. You can't paralyze any condition and keep it. It's going to change, and something that arises is going to cease. So what you're attached to in now, you're going to lose. Even if, no matter how hard you try to hold on to it. Now, if you change your attitude and contemplate suffering and its causes, like the second noble truth about the avijja, the three desires and attachment to the three desires, because this is a desire realm. What we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, this feeling realm is all about pleasure, pain, beautiful, ugly. It's and we want the beautiful, the comfort, the happiness. We don't want the ugly, the painful, the misery of life. And so we have, we want the sense pleasures, good food and beautiful fragrances and sounds, and stay forever young and beautiful, and and on the sense level, Bhavadana is a desire to become something else, what you'd like to become, like an enlightened Buddha or a Devada or a God or just a happy, secure human being. That's Bhavadana, wanting something you don't have. And then Vipavadana is a desire to get rid of what you don't like. So you're trying to get rid of anger, trying to get rid of greed, trying to get rid of sexual desire, trying to get rid of worry and anxiety and fear. I mean, with psychotherapists, that's what they do, try to help people to, have more positive images of themselves and do things that make you happy, rather than actually looking at suffering as the first noble truth, the cause of suffering, and then through seeing the desires, you're not getting rid of desire. You can't get rid of it. You can recognize, you study desire through these different three categories. That which is aware of desire is not desire. That which is aware of dukkha is not dukkha, and that's consciousness.
Can you call it consciousness, or can you call it your, I already asked, can you call it your true self or your true being? Is it correct, or?
What?
To call that consciousness, to call it your real being or your real self?
You can do that, yes. But then it tends to, like pronouns, possessive pronouns make it's easy to delude ourselves. And if you notice the way the structure, especially in Theravada Buddhism, it's structured so that it gives you least chance of hanging on to something. But it sounds like annihilationism or nihilism. Like when somebody asked me years ago, about Nibbana, and this was when I was up there, and I asked a monk up in Long Time about Nibbana. He said it's extinction. You just become extinct, and that sounded rather awful, actually. It sounded like annihilation to my mind, and then Nibbana is a word, that is it's a mystery word. What does it actually mean? And but it doesn't give you any chance of clinging to it as some kind of ultimate form that we can still say, I want to reach Nibbana and operate from that principle, but you won't get very far with that. It's when you let go that you realize Nibbana. Because Nibbana is a reality, not some kind of precious attainment, but it's the reality of now, and anatta, or these words like unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned. So I've always used that teaching in the Udana, the Nibbana scriptures in Udana, and I'm going to tell you, let's see, the panta before this last panta, I use that as those four stanzas. They're very, it's just so beautifully said. And the first one is almost like the Heart Sutra in Mahayana. It's there's no sun, moon, earth, and on like this. In consciousness embraces the sun, the moon, the stars, all forms. So your consciousness has no boundary. It's immeasurable. I'm not trying to believe this, but it's a way of looking at something. Just try it out, experiment with it, where you think of consciousness as this limited thing that comes and goes and flashes by. It doesn't seem, you don't really know what it is. And what is it that can recognize conditioned phenomena? And then can one condition recognize another, or can desire no desire? Can one desire know another desire? These are the questions you ask yourself. Danha, but you can know danha just by looking at, wanting something you don't have, or not wanting what you have is like this, or gamadana, sexual desire, or just pleasure-seeking sense pleasures, things that please your senses, you can recognize it. What is it that recognizes can know Dhanha is not Dhanha? And the conditioned realm is all about Dhanha. It's about survival. It's about birth and death. So you're surrounded. Your own body is Dhanha, creation, human body, and then the senses are based on seeing things that we want or don't want. But the knowing is beyond that. It's not Dhanha, but it is conscious. It's the knowing consciously that Dhanha is a condition of rising, ceasing. So you end up with just this sense of the Buddha made it incredibly simple for us, because this world we're living in, the conditioned realm, is so complicated. It goes on endlessly, like metaphor, counting all the leaves in the forest here. Try to imagine yourself trying to count all the leaves. And just one at a time, And you just couldn't keep track. It's too vast, and we're too limited in our forms. We're not like God that sees over all from above, but we're human beings sitting right here, experiencing reality, in limited forms, in a place at this time. So recognize that we're all under limitation in form, but not in consciousness, is unlimited. I'm just saying this to reflect, not ask you to believe it, but it changes the way, your way of looking at things.